The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a sound like wind through ancient trees. Ambassador Chen walked through them with steady steps even though her heart was beating fast. She had been in space for 3 years now, but the council chamber still took her breath away. The walls were made of living crystal that changed color with every thought and emotion of the beings inside. The ceiling stretched up so high that clouds formed near the top. Around her, 300 different alien species floated, sat, or stood in their designated areas. Some looked like giant jellyfish made of light. Others were mechanical beings with bodies of spinning gears and glowing cores. A few looked almost human, except for small differences like extra eyes or skin that changed color. They all watched her with curiosity and something else she couldn't name. Was it worry? Chen had been summoned for what the message called a routine historical verification. Every new species that joined the galactic community had to go through this process. It was supposed to be boring paperwork, just confirming Earth's history and its place in the galaxy. Humanity had only been traveling between stars for 20 years. They were babies compared to some species here that had been in space for millions of years. High Archivist Velthar floated down from the center platform. The being was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Its body was pure energy held together by a geometric shell that looked like it was made of golden glass. When it spoke, the words appeared directly in Chen's mind in perfect English. Ambassador Chen of Earth, Velthar said. Welcome. Today we will perform the deep scan of your world's quantum signature. This will reveal your planet's original designation in the ancient database. Chen nodded. She had been briefed about this. Every planet had a unique quantum signature like a fingerprint. The ancient database was older than any current civilization. It contained records from species that had died out billions of years ago. Sometimes planets had different names in those old records. I understand, Chen said. Earth is ready to learn about its past. Several aliens in the chamber made sounds that might have been laughs or gasps. Chen couldn't tell which. Velthar's energy form pulsed brighter for a moment. Very well, Velthar said. Please stand in the scanning circle. A ring of blue light appeared on the floor. Chen walked to its center. Around her, strange machines rose from hidden panels in the floor. They looked like a mixture of technology and art, with curves and angles that hurt to look at directly. The machines began to hum. Initiating quantum signature scan, Velthar announced. Accessing ancient database. Searching for planetary designation matching Earth's signature. The humming grew louder. The lights in the chamber began to flicker. Chen felt something like static electricity running over her skin. The alien representatives had gone very quiet. Even the ones that usually never stopped moving were perfectly still. The crystalline walls began showing symbols and images. Chen saw stars being born and dying in seconds. She saw maps of the galaxy from different time periods, showing how star systems had moved over billions of years. Then the images focused on one small section, zooming in until she could see a familiar yellow sun and a small blue planet third from its center. Match found, Velthar said, but its voice sounded different now. Scared. Retrieving designation. The humming stopped. The silence that followed was complete. Every being in the chamber seemed to be holding its breath, even the ones that didn't breathe. Then burning red symbols appeared in the air above Chen's head. They were written in a language she had never seen before, but somehow she could understand them. The words read, Fortress Null, the Wanderer's End. The reaction was immediate and terrible. Half the aliens in the chamber disconnected from the session instantly, their forms vanishing like smoke. Others began backing away, their various forms of locomotion carrying them as far from Chen as possible. A group of mechanical beings started transmitting rapid signals to each other, their lights flashing in panicked patterns. Ambassador Kretak of the Void Hunters, a species known for never showing fear, actually fell to what Chen assumed were its knees. Its forearms spread wide in what looked like a gesture of surrender or prayer. No, Kretak whispered, and its translator made the word sound like a death sentence. Not Fortress Null. It cannot be. Chen stood in the center of the chaos, completely confused. What's wrong? What is Fortress Null? Velthar's energy form was flickering wildly now, like a candle in a storm. Ambassador Chen, please remain calm. We need to convene an emergency session. The full council must be informed. Informed of what? Chen asked, her voice rising. What are you all so afraid of? A new voice spoke from the back of the chamber. It belonged to Elder Zuthun of the Silver Fleet, one of the oldest and most respected members of the council. The elder looked like a giant mantis made of silver metal, with eyes that had seen the birth and death of stars. Fortress Null is a legend, Zuthun said slowly, a story we tell our younglings to make them behave. It's the planet that ended the first expansion, the world that broke the ancient empire, the prison that holds them, Chen asked. The Wanderers, Velthar whispered, and several aliens made gestures she recognized as protective wards against evil. Chen felt cold, despite the warm air of the chamber. What are Wanderers? Death, said a voice from above. Death that walks between dimensions. Death that feeds on the minds of entire civilizations. Death that cannot be killed, only contained. The speaker floated down slowly. It was Ambassador Thuvar of the Crystal Mines, beings made entirely of living mineral. Thuvar's body chimed like bells as it moved. 10,000 years ago, Thuvar continued, the greatest alliance of species ever assembled fought the Wanderers. Millions of worlds burned. Billions of minds were consumed. In the end, the only solution was to trap them. They built a prison, a planet designed from its core to its atmosphere to be a cage. They called it Fortress Null. Chen's mind raced. You're saying Earth is this prison? Not just a prison, Velthar said. A prison needs guards. The builders of Fortress Null knew that, so they created the perfect wardens, a species that would evolve to be completely psychically null, invisible to the Wanderers, a species programmed at the genetic level to destroy anything that might free the prisoners. The pieces clicked together in Chen's mind. Humans. You're talking about humans. Every war your species has fought, Zuthun said. Every act of violence, every weapon you've created, it's all part of your programming. You are living weapons, designed to kill anything that threatens the prison, and you've been doing it so long you forgot what you really are. Chen wanted to argue, to deny it, but something deep in her mind whispered that it was true. How many times had humans gone to war over nothing? How many times had they built weapons that could destroy their own world? How many times had they looked at the stars and felt not wonder, but a need to be ready for something? The council must decide what to do, Velthar said. If Earth truly is Fortress Null, if humans truly are the wardens, then we may have made a terrible mistake by bringing you to the stars. The prison was meant to be isolated. The wardens were meant to be alone. What happens now? Chen asked. Now? Velthar's form dimmed. Now we pray that waking the wardens doesn't mean the end of everything. Now we hope that 10,000 years of isolation has changed you enough that you won't fulfill your original purpose. Which is? Every alien in the chamber spoke the same words at the same time in perfect unison, as if compelled by some ancient memory, to destroy any who come too close to Fortress Null. Chen stood alone in the scanning circle, the red words still burning above her head. She thought about Earth, about humanity, about all the wars and weapons and violence that defined human history. She thought about how humans always felt like they were preparing for something, some great threat that never came. Or maybe it had come over and over, and humans had destroyed it without even knowing why. The chamber began to empty as more aliens fled. Soon only Chen, Velthar, and a few others remained. The High Archivist floated closer, its energy form still unstable. Ambassador Chen, it said, I must ask you to return to your ship. The Council will deliberate. We will contact Earth when we have decided how to proceed. Chen nodded and turned to leave, but at the door she stopped and looked back. If we really are these wardens, she said, if Earth really is this prison, then answer me one question. Are the Wanderers still there? Are they still locked inside our world? Velthar's form flashed with fear. That, Ambassador, is what terrifies us most. We don't know. The prison has been silent for 10,000 years. It could be empty or you've been standing guard over horrors beyond imagination and you never knew it. And now that you do know, we have to wonder, what will humanity do with that knowledge? Chen left the chamber with those words echoing in her mind. Outside, she could see her ship waiting, a small human vessel among the massive alien crafts. It looked so innocent, so harmless. But if the Council was right, that ship was built by the most dangerous species in the galaxy, a species designed to be killers, a species that had spent 10,000 years guarding a prison they didn't even know existed. The emergency session began 3 days later. The Grand Council chamber had been reconfigured into its maximum security mode. Energy shields hummed between each species section. Armed guards from 20 different worlds stood at every entrance. the kind of protection usually reserved for war councils or trials of genocidal criminals. Ambassador Chen sat in the human section, feeling very alone. Back on Earth, the government leaders were in chaos. Her message about Fortress Null had triggered emergency meetings in every major capital. Scientists were reviewing ancient ruins with new eyes. Military leaders were checking their weapons and wondering if they had been built for threats they couldn't remember. At the center of the chamber, a being materialized that Chen had never seen before. It was ancient beyond measure, a creature that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Parts of it were solid, parts were gas, parts were pure thought that hurt to perceive. This was Elder Kix Theta of the Eternal Archive. I am called from my meditation for the first time in 3,000 years, Kix Theta spoke, and its voice sounded like the echo of dying stars. The council tells me Fortress Null has been found, that the wardens have awakened. Show me these humans. A hologram of Earth appeared in the center of the chamber, then images of humans going about their daily lives. Cities, farms, children playing, adults working. It all looked so normal, so peaceful. Kix Theta studied the images for a long moment. Yes, it finally said. These are the wardens. I see it in their bone structure, in their neural patterns, in the way they move. Every aspect optimized for survival and combat. But something is different. They've changed. Changed how? Asked Velthar. They've developed beyond their programming. Art, music, love, compassion. These things were not part of the original design. The wardens were meant to be purely functional. These humans have become something more. Chen stood up. With respect, Elder, we're not anyone's weapons. We're a species with our own free will, our own dreams and hopes. Kix Theta turned its attention to her, and Chen felt like she was being examined at a molecular level. You truly believe that, don't you? Very well. Let me tell you the real history of your world, and then you can decide if you still believe in your free will. The lights in the chamber dimmed. In the air above them, images began to form. Stars, galaxies, shapes that weren't quite real but cast shadows anyway. 15,000 years ago, Kix Theta began. The galaxy was ruled by the first expansion, an alliance of species so advanced that they could reshape matter with thought, travel between dimensions, create and destroy stars. They believed nothing could threaten them. They were wrong. The images showed beautiful cities floating in space, beings of pure light dancing between stars, technology that looked like magic. Then darkness began creeping in from the edges. The wanderers came from outside our reality. We still don't know exactly what they are. Living nightmares, some say. The universe's immune system, say others. Parasites that feed on consciousness itself. They attacked without warning, without reason, without mercy. The beautiful cities burned. The beings of light went dark. Entire star systems simply stopped existing as if they had never been. The first expansion fought back with weapons that could crack planets and burn holes in reality. It didn't matter. The Wanderers existed partially outside our dimension. Physical weapons barely touched them. Energy weapons just fed them. And worst of all, any species with psychic abilities, any race that could touch minds or feel emotions across space, the Wanderers could track them, feed on them, use them as doorways into our reality. Chen watched the horror unfold in the images, billions dying in seconds, entire civilizations being erased from existence. In desperation, Kix Theta continued, the survivors tried something unprecedented. They would build a trap, not just any trap, but a perfect prison. They found a young planet in an isolated part of the galaxy. They rebuilt it from the core outward. Every atom was engineered. The magnetic field, the atmosphere. The very rotation of the planet was designed to create a dimensional lock, a place where the barriers between realities were so strong that nothing could pass through. The image showed Earth being constructed like a massive machine, mountains placed in specific patterns, oceans designed to conduct energy in precise ways. Even the moon was positioned to create the perfect gravitational balance. But a prison needs guards, Kix Theta said, so they created you. Humans. They took genetic material from 100 different warrior species and combined it. They programmed you at the deepest level to be perfect killers, but with one special trait that made you unique. We're psychically null, Chen said quietly. Exactly. The Wanderers cannot see you, cannot feed on you. To them you don't exist. You're the only species in the galaxy that is completely invisible to them. That's why you could guard them. That's why you could fight anything that tried to free them. The images showed early humans, but not as the history books described. These humans were organized, deadly, purposeful. They built structures that archaeologists now called primitive monuments, but were clearly weapons. They fought off invasions from space that Earth's history had forgotten or turned into myths. For 5,000 years, the Wardens did their job perfectly, Kixtheta said. Any ship that came too close to Earth was destroyed. Any signal that might wake the Wanderers was silenced. Humanity reset itself over and over, each time forgetting their purpose but never losing their programming. You fought each other when there were no external threats keeping your skills sharp. You built weapons even when you had no enemies, preparing for threats you couldn't remember. But then something happened. Velthar interjected. The galaxy forgot about Fortress Null. The warning beacons were destroyed in the second collapse. The star maps were lost. Earth became just another primitive world in an unexplored sector. And humans began to evolve beyond their programming, Kixtheta added. You developed culture, philosophy, science that wasn't focused on war. You began asking questions about your purpose, about your place in the universe. The perfect weapons began to think they were people. Chen felt anger rising in her chest. We are people. Whatever we were made to be, we've chosen to become something more. Have you? Kixtheta asked. Tell me, Ambassador, what is humanity's greatest fear? Chen thought about it. Being alone in the universe? No. Your greatest fear is that you're not alone. Every human culture has myths about invaders from the sky. Every human child instinctively fears the dark and what might be hiding in it. Every human has dreams about fighting enemies they can't see. That's not paranoia. That's genetic memory. You know deep in your DNA that something is out there and you need to be ready to fight it. The chamber was silent. Even the ever-present hum of technology seemed muted. So what happens now? Chen asked. Are you going to destroy us? Isolate us? That's what we're here to decide, said Zuthun from the Silver Fleet. The question is whether humanity can overcome its programming, or whether you'll always be the Wardens, ready to destroy anything you see as a threat. There's another problem, said a new voice. Ambassador Yillith of the Quantum Observers floated forward. Their species could see probability streams, glimpses of possible futures. I've been calculating potential outcomes since the discovery. In 90% of futures where we try to contain or destroy humanity, you revert to your original programming. You become the Wardens again, and this time you don't stop at defending Earth. You eliminate every threat in the galaxy, which means everyone. And in the other 10%? Velthar asked. The Wanderers escape. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Several species made sounds of fear or distress. You're saying we're trapped? Thuvar of the Crystal Mines chimed. We can't fight the Wardens and we can't ignore them. There is a third option, Chen said, surprising herself with her boldness. You could trust us. You could work with us. Tell us the truth about the Wanderers. Help us understand what we're guarding. Let us choose to be partners instead of programmed weapons. And if the knowledge triggers your programming? Kixtheta asked. If learning about the Wanderers activates some dormant command in your DNA, then at least we'll face it with our eyes open, Chen replied. Humanity has always been at its best when we understand the threat we're facing. We've fought diseases, disasters, and each other. But when we know what we're fighting and why, we can choose how to fight, or whether to fight at all. Kixtheta was quiet for a long moment. There's something else you should know, Ambassador. The prison beneath your feet. The cage built into Earth's core, it's not empty. The Wanderers are still there. Thousands of them. Held in stasis by the electromagnetic field generated by your planet's rotation and the psychic null field, created by human consciousness. Chen felt her blood run cold. They're still there on Earth? We've been living above them for all of human history. Every human heartbeat helps maintain the prison. Every human thought reinforces the psychic null field. Every human child born adds another guard to the watch. You haven't just been programmed to defend the prison. You are the prison. Humanity and Earth are one system, designed to hold the most dangerous entities the galaxy has ever known. If that's true, Chen said slowly, then what happens if humanity leaves Earth? Admiral Sarah Reyes stood on the bridge of humanity's newest and most powerful warship, the UES Prometheus. Through the view screen, she could see the 3 alien fleets approaching Earth's solar system. Each fleet was massive, containing ships that dwarfed anything humanity had built. They were still beyond Neptune, But at their current speed, they would reach Earth's orbit in 6 hours. The test had been explained to every human in the solar system. The Galactic Council wanted to see if humanity could overcome its programming. 3 fleets would approach Earth. Humanity had to stand down, had to not attack, had to prove they were more than living weapons. It sounded simple. It was impossible. Admiral, her first officer, Commander David Park, said quietly, "The crew is experiencing difficulties." Reyes turned to look at her bridge crew. Every face was covered in sweat. Every hand was shaking. Lieutenant Torres at the weapons station was gripping his console so hard his knuckles were white. He kept reaching for the firing controls, then pulling his hand back like it had been burned. "I can see them," Torres whispered. "In my mind, I can see them. Enemies approaching. Threats to eliminate. Targets to destroy. Admiral, I don't know how much longer I can resist." Reyes felt it too. Every instinct screaming at her to attack. Every fiber of her being demanding she protect Earth. It wasn't fear or anger. It was deeper than that. It was purpose, like her entire existence had been building to this moment. "All ships, this is Admiral Reyes," she said into the fleet communication system. "I know what you're feeling. We all feel it. But we are not slaves to our programming. We are human beings with free will. We choose our actions. Stand down and hold positions." The response came back from Captain Nakamura on the UES Armstrong. "Admiral, my tactical officer just drew his sidearm and tried to override my command. We had to sedate him. Half my crew is showing similar symptoms. Whatever we were programmed to do, it's stronger than we thought." On Earth, the situation was worse. Reports were flooding in from every major city. People were gathering in the streets, looking up at the sky with expressions of grim determination. In Moscow, civilians had broken into a military depot and were distributing weapons. In New York, children in a kindergarten had stopped playing and arranged their desks into defensive positions. In Tokyo, thousands of people were drawing blueprints for weapons they shouldn't know how to build. The world's leaders were in emergency session, trying to maintain order, but even they were struggling. The President of the United States had to be physically restrained from launching nuclear missiles. The Chinese Premier kept writing battle plans on every surface he could find. The European Council had to be locked in separate rooms to stop them from turning their meeting into a war room. "Admiral," Park said, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead alien vessel. Put it through." The screen shifted to show Ambassador Velthar, the energy being Chen had described in her reports. Its form was flickering rapidly, a sign of distress. "Admiral Reyes," Velthar said, "we're monitoring your population's response. Perhaps we should abort the test." "No," Reyes said through gritted teeth. "We need to do this. We need to prove we're more than weapons. Your people are suffering. We can see the stress readings from here. No species should have to fight against its own nature like this." Reyes laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You don't understand. We've always fought against our nature. Every day, humans choose not to hurt each other. We choose cooperation over conflict. We choose peace over war. This is just more intense." On the tactical display, she watched the alien fleets cross the orbit of Uranus. 5 hours until they reached Earth. 5 hours to prove humanity could evolve. But then something else appeared on the screen. Energy signatures from Earth, types that no human technology should be able to produce. "Admiral," the sensor officer called out, his voice cracking, "we're detecting massive power signatures from Earth's surface." The locations match. They match ancient monument sites. The main screen switched to a view of Earth from orbit. Points of light were appearing across the planet's surface. The Great Pyramid of Giza was glowing with a pale blue energy. Stonehenge was surrounded by a pillar of light that reached into the upper atmosphere. The Nazca lines were burning with patterns visible from space. Easter Island, Angkor Wat, Machu Picchu. Dozens of sites humanity had thought were just ancient constructions were revealing themselves as something more. "It's a defense grid," whispered Lieutenant Torres. "We built a planetary defense grid and then forgot about it. But it remembers. It knows there's a threat approaching." The energy readings were off the scale. Each monument was generating more power than a nuclear reactor. And they were all connecting, creating a network of energy that wrapped around the entire planet. "Velthar," Reyes said urgently, "you need to stop your approach. The defense grid is activating. I don't think we can control it." "We cannot stop," Velthar replied. "This is part of the test, to see if humanity can override not just your mental programming, But the physical systems you built, if we retreat now, we'll never know if you can truly change. On Earth, the activation of the defense grid was having an unexpected effect on the population. Every human suddenly felt connected. Not telepathically, but something deeper. They could feel each other's presence, each other's heartbeat. 8 billion minds suddenly aware of each other, united in a single purpose: defend Earth. Reyes gasped as the sensation hit her. She could feel every human in the solar system, every colonist on Mars, every researcher on Europa, every child on Earth. They were all part of something larger, a collective consciousness that had been dormant for 10,000 years. And in that collective, she could hear voices. Not human voices, but memories embedded in their DNA. Instructions left by their creators. Primary directive: protect Fortress Null. Secondary directive: eliminate all threats. Tertiary directive: no witnesses. No, Reyes said out loud, fighting against the commands. We're not machines. We're not weapons. We're people. But even as she said it, she could feel her crew moving with perfect coordination. No orders needed. No communication required. They all knew exactly what to do. Torres was bringing weapons online. Park was calculating firing solutions. The engineering team was boosting power to shields and engines. They moved like a single organism with a million parts. The alien fleets passed Saturn, 3 hours to Earth. On the planet below, the defense grid was fully active now. Ancient weapons that had been hidden for millennia were rising from the Earth. Mountains split open to reveal massive cannons. Ocean floors cracked to release swarms of drones that humanity had built and forgotten. The moon itself was showing energy signatures, its craters hiding weapons that could crack planets. This is what we are, Park said, his voice distant and mechanical. This is what we were made to be. The perfect defense system. Nothing gets past us. Nothing threatens the prison. Fight it, Reyes ordered. Remember who you are. Remember your families, your friends, your dreams. You're not just soldiers. You're human beings. For a moment, it seemed to work. She saw confusion in her crew's eyes, humanity fighting against programming. But then the alien fleets crossed inside Jupiter's orbit and something snapped. Every human in the solar system moved at once, not consciously, not deliberately, but instinctively. Like white blood cells responding to an infection, the colonies on Mars launched every ship they had. The mining stations in the asteroid belt turned their equipment into weapons. Even the research station on Pluto was preparing to fight. And on Earth, 8 billion humans stood up and looked at the sky with the same expression. Calm, focused, ready. Admiral Reyes, Velthar said, and for the first time the alien sounded truly afraid. Your species is mobilizing. Every single human is preparing for war. This is beyond anything we expected. We're trying to stop it, Reyes said, but even as she spoke, her hand was moving to the weapons console. We're trying to... She stopped. In the collective consciousness, she felt something else. A question rising from the mind of a child in Mumbai who had been watching the news with her parents. Why are we fighting? The child asked in the shared space of human thought. They haven't hurt us. They're just visiting. Why do we need to fight visitors? The question rippled through the collective. 8 billion minds considered it. The programming said, eliminate all threats. But the child's question asked, are they actually threats? Another voice joined in. A philosopher in Greece. If we were made to protect the prison and the prison is secure, then aren't we succeeding? Why attack those who pose no danger to our purpose? More voices. A farmer in Kansas. They're not trying to free the wanderers. They're trying to help us. A soldier in Japan. Defending doesn't always mean attacking. A teacher in Kenya. We can be guards without being killers. The collective consciousness churned with debate. The programming was clear. Destroy all who approach. But human thought, human reason, human choice was fighting back. Reyes felt the battle raging in every human mind. 10,000 years of programming against a few decades of free thought. Instinct against reason. Purpose against choice. The alien fleets passed Mars. 1 hour to Earth. And then something unprecedented happened. The collective consciousness voted. Not with words or ballots, but with will. The moment the Galactic Council fleets crossed into Mars orbit, every human in existence changed. Not physically, but something far more profound. Admiral Reyes watched it happen to her crew, felt it happen to herself. One moment they were individuals struggling against their programming. The next, they were something else entirely. Perimeter breach detected, Reyes heard herself say, but it wasn't just her voice. It was the voice of 8 billion humans speaking in perfect synchronization across the solar system. Initiating Warden Protocol 7. On Earth, in the city of London, Dr. James Crawford was in the middle of teaching a physics class when the change hit. His students watched in terror and fascination as their professor's eyes began to glow with a soft white light. But it wasn't just him. Every human in the building, in the city, and the world had the same glow. "Don't be afraid," Crawford said to his students, and his voice carried harmonics that shouldn't exist. "We are still ourselves. We are just also something more. We are the thin line between the darkness and the light." In Beijing, General Li Wei stood in the military command center, watching as every screen showed the same thing: humanity moving with perfect coordination without any orders being given. Soldiers were taking positions they shouldn't know existed. Civilians were evacuating from areas that would become battlefields. Children were being moved to shelters that had been built thousands of years ago and forgotten. "How do we know what to do?" his aide asked, her eyes glowing with the same light. "We've always known," Li Wei replied. "We just forgot we knew. But the knowledge was always there, written in our DNA, waiting for the moment we would need it." Back on the Prometheus, Reyes felt the collective consciousness of humanity flowing through her mind. But it wasn't the cold mechanical unity of the programming. It was something warm, alive, filled with 8 billion different perspectives, all working toward the same goal. She could feel a mother in Nigeria, clutching her child and knowing exactly how to protect him, a fisherman in Norway understanding why he needed to move his boat to specific coordinates, a scientist in Antarctica suddenly comprehending equations that had puzzled humanity for centuries. "Admiral," Velthar's voice came through the communication system, "what's happening to your species? These readings are unprecedented." "We're remembering," Reyes replied, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's collective knowledge. "Not just what we were made to be, but what we chose to become. We're not rejecting our nature as wardens. We're evolving it." On the main screen, Earth was transforming. The planet's surface was rippling with energy patterns that had been dormant for millennia. The continents themselves were revealed to be carefully placed pieces of a massive machine. The oceans were conductors in a planetary circuit. Every mountain, every valley, every river had been positioned to create the most complex prison ever constructed. "My God," Commander Park whispered. "Earth isn't just a prison. It's a living machine, and we're its operating system." Deep beneath Earth's surface, in chambers that existed partially outside normal space-time, the Wanderers stirred. They had been dormant for so long that most of the galaxy had forgotten what they truly were. Not creatures of flesh or energy, but something far worse. They were living entropy, consciousness given to the force of decay itself. They existed to unmake things, to return order to chaos, to feed on the organized patterns of thought that defined life. The lead Wanderer, if such terms could apply to beings of pure dissolution, pressed against its cage. For 10,000 years, the prison had held because of two factors: the physical structure of Earth itself and the psychic null field generated by human consciousness. Now, with the alien fleet so close, there were other minds to feed on, other patterns to corrupt. The prison walls were still strong, but for the first time in millennia, they weren't absolute. Through the collective consciousness, humanity felt the Wanderers testing their cage. Every human experienced it as a cold wind in their mind, a whisper of ending, a promise of unmaking. Children cried out in terror. Adults reached for weapons they didn't have. The elderly remembered nightmares they had forgotten. "They're so hungry," Lieutenant Torres said, tears streaming down his glowing eyes. 10,000 years of hunger. They want to feed. They want to unmake everything we've built." "Let them want," Reyes replied, her voice hard as diamond. "Wanting isn't getting. We are the wardens. We hold the line." But even as she said it, she felt the truth that the collective consciousness was revealing. The prison wasn't perfect. It had never been perfect. It had held for 10,000 years, not because it couldn't be broken, but because humanity had been there to repair it. Every time a wanderer found a weakness, humans had unconsciously moved to reinforce it. Every time the prison wavered, human civilization had shifted to compensate. Every war humanity had fought had been practice for this. Every weapon they had built had been preparation. Every advance in technology had been moving toward a single goal: being ready for the day the real threat appeared. And now that day had come. On Earth, the transformation accelerated. Humans weren't just acting with coordination. They were becoming something new. The collective consciousness was evolving, creating connections that shouldn't be possible. A farmer in India suddenly understood quantum physics because a scientist in Switzerland needed help. A child in Brazil provided a solution to an engineering problem that had stumped experts. An artist in France drew blueprints for weapons that wouldn't be invented for centuries. "This is impossible," Velthar transmitted, watching the readings from the alien fleet. "No species can share knowledge like this without telepathy. You're psychically null. This shouldn't be happening." "We're not telepathic," Reyes agreed. "We're something else. We're a distributed consciousness. Every human is a neuron in a planetary brain. We don't share thoughts. We share purpose." The Wanderers were growing stronger. They could taste the alien minds just outside Earth's orbit. Minds full of fear, curiosity, ordered thoughts that could be unraveled, patterns that could be consumed. They pressed harder against their cage, and for the first time in 10,000 years, cracks appeared. Not physical cracks. The prison didn't exist entirely in physical space. These were cracks in reality itself, places where the laws of physics started to break down. On Earth, these manifestations appeared as impossible phenomena. Water flowing upward, shadows moving without light sources, places where time moved backward. In Tokyo, an entire city block aged 100 years in seconds, then returned to normal. In London, a park became a void where nothing could exist, then snapped back to reality. In New York, gravity reversed for 3 seconds, sending people and objects flying upward before crashing back down. "The prison is failing," Park reported, reading data that he shouldn't be able to understand but did anyway. "The Wanderers are breaking through." "No," Reyes said, and her voice carried the determination of all humanity. "The prison isn't failing. It's being tested. And we're going to pass that test." Through the collective consciousness, she sent a command. Not words, but pure intent. Every human understood instantly. Earth's defense grid activated again, but not facing outward toward the alien fleets. This time it faced inward toward the planet's core. The pyramids, Stonehenge, the Nazca lines, all the ancient structures humanity had built and forgotten, they weren't weapons to fight invaders. They were reinforcements for the prison, backup systems for the day the Wanderers grew strong. 8 billion humans stood up simultaneously. In perfect synchronization, they placed their hands on the ground. Through the collective consciousness, they pushed their will into the planet itself. Every human heartbeat became a hammer, strengthening the prison walls. Every human thought became a chain, binding the Wanderers tighter. The children sang songs that weren't in any language but carried meaning older than words. The adults focused their minds on patterns of order and structure, creating psychic barriers the Wanderers couldn't cross. The elderly remembered stories passed down through generations, myths and legends that were actually instruction manuals for this moment. "What are you doing?" Velthar asked, watching the energy readings spike beyond anything they had measured before. "We're being human," Reyes replied. "We're taking something meant to make us monsters and choosing to be protectors instead. We're not the wardens because we were programmed to be. We're the wardens because we choose to be." The Wanderers fought back with fury born of eons of imprisonment. They leaked chaos into reality, trying to break the patterns that held them. Buildings crumbled into dust, then reformed. People aged and grew young in moments. The laws of physics became suggestions rather than rules, but humanity held firm. Through the collective consciousness, they shared strength, knowledge, determination. When one human faltered, a million others caught them. When doubt crept in, hope from billions pushed it back. They were no longer individuals fighting alone. They were a species united in purpose, and then something unexpected happened. The alien fleets joined in. "Admiral Reyes," Velthar transmitted, "we cannot enter your collective consciousness, but we can help. Every species has ways of reinforcing order, of maintaining patterns. We will add our strength to yours." The question came from a 7-year-old girl named Maya, standing in a refugee shelter in Mumbai where thousands had gathered during the crisis. Her small voice carried through the collective consciousness that still lingered in humanity's minds, reaching all 8 billion humans simultaneously. But what if we can be the wardens and the free? The simple question shattered 10,000 years of binary thinking. Every human felt it like a bell ringing in their minds. They had been told they were either weapons or people, either slaves or free, either monsters or heroes. But a child had seen what none of the adults had. They could be both. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, feeling the weight of that question ripple through humanity's shared awareness. Around Earth, the alien fleets waited, watching to see what humanity would decide. The prison was stable for now, the Wanderers contained, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. Ambassador Velthar, Reyes said, opening a channel to the alien fleet. We have a proposal. The energy being's form materialized on the main screen, flickering with curiosity. We are listening, Admiral. For 10,000 years, humanity has been the unconscious guardians of the most dangerous prison in the galaxy. We did it alone, without knowledge, without choice, without help. That ends today. She felt the collective consciousness of humanity flowing through her, 8 billion voices speaking as one, but each maintaining their individuality. It was not the programmed unity of the Wardens, nor the chaos of separate minds. It was something new. We will remain the Wardens of Earth, Reyes continued. We will keep the Wanderers contained, but we will do it as partners with the galaxy, not as programmed weapons. We will share the burden and the knowledge, and in return you will help us understand what we're guarding and why. Elder Kixa Theta materialized beside Velthar, its ancient form shimmering across multiple dimensions. You would trust us with the knowledge of the prison? You would risk us making mistakes that could free the Wanderers? The alternative is leaving humanity to guard them alone. With programming we don't fully understand and powers we can't fully control, Reyes replied. Which sounds more dangerous to you? The council representatives murmured among themselves. On Earth, humanity waited. The collective consciousness was still active, but softer now, like background music rather than an overwhelming symphony. People could feel each other's presence, share strength when needed, but maintain their individual thoughts and choices. In Berlin, Dr. Helena Schwartz was examining the readings from the recent event. The prison structure has changed, she announced to the Emergency Scientific Council. When humanity chose to embrace our role as wardens, we somehow rewrote parts of the containment system. It's no longer purely automatic. It responds to conscious human will. In Moscow, General Petrov was studying the defense grid that had revealed itself. These weapons, these structures, they're not just ancient technology. They're interfaces, ways for human consciousness to interact directly with the prison. We built them in our past, but I think we can improve them with our present knowledge. In Washington, President Martinez was in emergency session with world leaders. We need to restructure everything, she said. If humanity is going to be conscious guardians of this prison, we need education systems that prepare our children for that responsibility. We need governments that can act with both individual freedom and collective purpose. We need to evolve our entire civilization. Back on the Prometheus, Velthar had reached a decision. The Council agrees to your proposal, Admiral, but there are conditions. We're listening. First, the prison must be monitored by multiple species, not just humanity. We need fail-safes in case your programming reasserts itself. Second, knowledge of the Wanderers must be carefully controlled. Not everyone in the galaxy can handle knowing that entropy itself has consciousness and hungers to unmake reality. Third, humanity must agree to gradual integration with galactic society. You cannot remain isolated on Earth if you're to be our partners. Reyes nodded. We accept with one addition. We want access to the historical records about our creation. We want to know everything about how we were made, why, and by whom. Kix Theta's form rippled with something that might have been surprise. That knowledge is dangerous, Admiral. The beings who created you still exist. They might want to reclaim their weapons. Then they'll learn what the Wanderers just learned, Reyes said, and her voice carried the steel of human determination. We're not anyone's weapons anymore. We're humanity. We choose our own path. The negotiation continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The galaxy needed humanity to guard the Wanderers. Humanity needed the galaxy's help to understand their purpose. It was a partnership born of necessity but strengthened by choice. As the details were being finalized, something unexpected happened. Deep beneath Antarctica, in vaults that hadn't been opened since before the prison was built, automated systems activated. The Council's scans of Earth had triggered ancient protocols. Admiral, Lieutenant Torres called out, his voice tight with concern. We're detecting massive energy signatures from Antarctica. Something's coming online down there. On the main screen, satellite imagery showed the ice shelf cracking, not melting but splitting along precise lines. revealing structures beneath that predated the prison itself. Buildings of impossible geometry, made from materials that shouldn't exist, architecture that hurt to perceive directly. By the void, Kixtheta whispered. Those are First One ruins. Technology from the beings who created the Wanderers. The collective consciousness of humanity turned its attention to Antarctica. Through 8 billion pairs of eyes, they saw what was hidden beneath the ice. Weapons that could reshape matter at the quantum level. Ships that could travel between dimensions. Devices that could create or destroy universal constants. Why is it there? Reyes asked. Why would the prison be built over such dangerous technology? Because, Kixtheta said slowly, the prison wasn't just meant to contain the Wanderers. It was meant to contain the means of their creation. The first ones didn't just disappear. They sealed away their technology and then had themselves transformed into something else. Into humanity. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Humanity wasn't created from warrior species. They were the first ones themselves, transformed and stripped of their memories, made into eternal guardians of their own mistakes. Through the collective consciousness, humanity grappled with this truth. They were not the weapons of an ancient alliance. They were the architects of their own prison, the creators of their own purpose. They had made the Wanderers in some forgotten age, and then remade themselves to guard against their creation. We did this to ourselves, Park said quietly. We chose to forget. We chose to become something else rather than face what we had done. No, Maya's voice rang out again through the collective consciousness. The little girl in Mumbai who had asked the crucial question. The people who did that are gone. They chose to become us, but we're not them. We're something new. We get to choose what we do with what they left us. Her words sparked a debate that raged through humanity's shared awareness. Some wanted to destroy the First One technology, to ensure it could never be used again. Others wanted to study it, to understand it, to perhaps find better ways to contain or even cure the Wanderers. Still others wanted to lock it away, to pretend it didn't exist. But gradually a consensus emerged. Not unanimous, but strong enough. Humanity would study the technology, carefully, slowly, with the help and oversight of the Galactic Council. They would learn about their origins, their true nature, and the mistakes of their past, and they would use that knowledge to be better guardians, better partners, better humans. As the decision was made, the Antarctic vaults sealed themselves again. But now humanity knew they were there. The temptation and the responsibility of that knowledge would be with them forever. Ambassador Chen is approaching Earth, Velthor announced. She carries the formal treaty between humanity and the Galactic Council, the document that officially recognizes Earth's new designation. Reyes watched as Chen's ship descended through Earth's atmosphere. The planet below was still scarred from the recent crisis, but already beginning to heal. Humanity was different now, changed by the knowledge of what they were. But perhaps changed for the better. The collective consciousness was fading, but not disappearing entirely. It would always be there now, a potential that could be activated when needed. Humanity had learned they could be individuals and a collective, free and guardians, human and something more. What will Earth's new name be? Torres asked. On the screen, the treaty appeared. Where once Earth had been listed simply by its coordinates, where it had been revealed as Fortress Null, the Wanderer's End, there was now a new designation. Earth, the Eternal Watch, homeworld of humanity, where those who created darkness chose to become light. Around the planet, 8 billion humans felt the rightness of that name. They were no longer unconscious wardens of a prison they didn't understand. They were conscious guardians of a responsibility they had chosen to embrace. But even as they celebrated this new beginning, they knew the story was far from over. The Wanderers still existed, still hungered, still waited.